In the thunderous realm of rock and roll stood a guitarist whose riffs could make gods weep and mortals bow down. Jimmy Page, the mastermind behind Led Zeppelin's earth-shattering sound, wasn't just a revolutionary musician who transformed blues into heavy metal magic. He was also a man with strong opinions about his musical peers, and not all of them were flattering. Welcome to Offstage Tales, where today we dive into the 6 legendary bands that Jimmy Page reportedly couldn't stand. From backstage confrontations to sly remarks in interviews, these rivalries reveal Page's perfectionism, his pride, and the brutal honesty that helped shape rock history. So, grab your guitars and tune up, because some of these names will shock you. The Rolling Stones, we begin with a name no one expected, the Rolling Stones. During the mid-1960s, Jimmy Page was one of London's most sought-after session guitarists, often competing with the Stones for the same gigs and recognition. According to music historian Dave Lewis, Page once told fellow musicians, they play like they're still learning their instruments every night. For Page, the Stones' raw, ragged approach to blues felt careless, too much swagger, not enough substance. He spent countless hours studying American blues masters and perfecting every note, while the Stones were conquering the charts with what Page allegedly dismissed as sloppy interpretations. The rivalry only deepened when both Zeppelin and the Stones became arena giants. At a 1970 industry party, witnesses claimed Page deliberately snubbed Keith Richards, walking away mid-conversation when Richards suggested a collaboration. To Jimmy, the Stones embodied style over skill, and he made no secret of his disdain. Deep Purple next is a duel of guitar titans, Deep Purple and their mercurial guitarist, Ritchie Blackmore. The early 1970s saw both bands battling for the crown of Britain's greatest hard rock act, and Page reportedly saw Blackmore as a flashy technician rather than a soulful player. Former roadies recall Page muttering after a Deep Purple gig, "All flash, no substance. He plays like he's trying to impress his guitar teacher." Page prided himself on mystical blues phrasing and improvisational feel, while Blackmore's neoclassical precision represented everything Jimmy considered pretentious. The feud escalated as magazines constantly compared the two guitarists. Producer Martin Birch even claimed Page once refused to record in a studio recently used by Purple, saying, "I don't want to catch whatever disease makes you think speed equals soul." Blackmore fired back in interviews, calling Led Zeppelin overhyped and accusing Page of relying on studio tricks. It was a rivalry built on ego, skill, and a shared need to be the loudest, fastest, and most legendary. 4. The Who coming in at number 4 is The Who. And here the conflict wasn't about guitar solos, it was about philosophy. Page respected Pete Townshend's songwriting but despised the band's habit of smashing their instruments on stage. According to Zeppelin roadie Richard Cole, Page watched The Who at the Monterey Pop Festival and muttered, "That's not rebellion, that's just waste. A guitar is a sacred instrument." To Jimmy, music was a spiritual craft requiring respect, not destruction. He believed The Who's theatrics turned rock into chaos and spectacle, undermining the artistry behind the music. Townshend later called Page technically brilliant but emotionally constipated, proving the tension was mutual. Even when the two bands shared festival lineups, Page reportedly avoided Townshend backstage, telling his manager, "I don't associate with vandals." Pink Floyd, our third spot, goes to the cerebral pioneers of psychedelic rock, Pink Floyd. Here, the rivalry was intellectual rather than personal. Both bands emerged from London's underground scene in the late 60s, but their approaches couldn't have been more different. Page believed in blues-rooted authenticity and songs that move the soul, while Floyd embraced sprawling soundscapes and abstract concepts. After hearing Interstellar Overdrive, Page allegedly dismissed it as pretentious noodling for people who think confusion equals profundity. When critics began comparing Zeppelin's mysticism to Floyd's experimentalism, Page bristled. At a 1973 industry party, he reportedly avoided Roger Waters, later saying, I don't need a philosophy degree to explain my music. For Page, Pink Floyd represented head over heart, art school intellect over gut-level passion. Jethro Tull in second place is one of rock's strangest feuds. Jethro Tull. The tension began when Ian Anderson's flute-driven prog folk started winning awards in the hard rock and metal categories, a move that Page considered an insult to heavy music. A former Atlantic Records executive recalled Page scoffing after a Tull concert, "A man playing a flute in tights is not rock and roll. It's Renaissance fair entertainment." The rivalry peaked at the 1989 Grammys when Jethro Tull famously won Best Hard Rock Metal Performance over Metallica. Though Page wasn't nominated, witnesses say he was furious, reportedly declaring, "When a band with a flute player can win a metal award, the genre has lost its meaning. For a man who helped define heavy rock, this was the ultimate betrayal." Black Sabbath, and finally, at number 1, the most shocking name of all, Black Sabbath. The godfathers of heavy metal were often credited with inventing the genre that Led Zeppelin helped pioneer, and that drove Page crazy. Former Sabbath manager Patrick Meehan recalled Page attending an early Sabbath session and sneering, "They're not musicians, they're just loud." Page spent endless hours perfecting mystical riffs and studio precision, while Sabbath achieved massive success with what he reportedly called three-chord nightmares played by factory workers. The rivalry reached its peak when critics began crediting Sabbath, not Zeppelin, as metal's true originators. Page allegedly kept newspaper clippings of these debates, growing more bitter each time Sabbath was hailed as the heaviest band on earth. To him, Sabbath represented everything wrong with heavy music's evolution: volume over virtuosity, darkness over depth, and simplicity over sophistication.
Please don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon.